Hello guys, welcome to Recap Queen. In this video, we will explain The Billionaire. This movie tells the story of an online gaming aficionado who overcomes many trials and tribulations to become a business tycoon at a young age. Can failure that continues to be experienced make him rise and succeed? Let's find out in The Billionaire. The Billionaire begins with the story of a teenage boy named Tao Ittipat. Tao was in a bank to borrow 10 million baht. Hearing that the loan amount was quite fantastic, the bank manager asked why he borrowed that much money. He then began to talk to the bank manager. The story goes back to the past when Tao was still in high school, where he liked to spend his time playing online games. One day, while playing an online game, he received a message from another gamer who wanted the weapon accessories used in the game. Other gamers were willing to pay 12,000 baht. Although initially hesitant, Tao finally agreed. Then, he borrowed his uncle's bank account to receive the payment because at that time, he could not have a savings account at the bank. Unexpectedly, the money transferred to purchase his online game accessories went into his uncle's savings account. Since then, Tao has started selling online game items that he owns. From there, he made a huge profit until he could buy a car. When he found out that his son could afford to buy a car with his own money, Tao was scolded by his parents. His parents thought that Tao got the money from gambling. When he explained honestly, his father couldn't believe it and his mother asked him to focus on studying at school. Tao ignored his parents' advice. He continued his business until he graduated from high school. When he graduated, Tao applied to a public university in Thailand. Unfortunately, he was not accepted. His parents scolded him for not being able to pass the entrance selection. He doesn't care if he doesn't pass because he thinks studying at a private university is just as good. Meanwhile, his father was disappointed because the cost would be quite expensive if he entered a private university. After that, he saw his parents starting to fight because of their family's financial problems. Then Tao looked at the amount in his bank account. He realized that his finances were running low. Unfortunately, the game account that became the source of his livelihood was suddenly blocked because he was caught being used for commercial purposes. Tao was looking for ways to make money. He bought a lot of DVD player that he plans to resell, but the DVD player was damaged. He went back to the store where he bought the DVD. Unfortunately, the DVD player seller refused to return Tao's money because the DVD player was a pirated product, so there was no warranty. Finally, he went home empty-handed, where dozens of DVD players he had bought were stored in the back seat of his car. As he was going home, Tao saw his father on the street. Finally, his father got into his car while he advised that running a business was not easy, especially for an inexperienced young man like him. Then his father gave Tao a wad of money to come back to college, but Tao refused the money. Instead, he took his father's amulet and pawned it for 100,000 baht. Of this money, he used it to pay for his tuition. One day, Tao visited a food expo exhibition. There, he became interested in an automatic peanut roaster. After he learned that the machine was the first peanut roaster in Thailand, he was interested in buying it even though it was very expensive. When he got home, his parents were again scolded him for being caught bringing the automatic peanut roaster home. He admitted that he only rented the machine for 50,000 baht. Tao began to learn how to make his roasted beans from vendors at the market until he found the right recipe. He finally started his business by selling peanuts with his uncle at the food park mall. Unfortunately, even though the mall is crowded, their peanuts still don't sell well. One day, while accompanying his girlfriend shopping at the market, he observed the merchants offering their wares and wrote them down in a notebook. In front of the market, he saw how people asked for donations to attract visitors' attention. From several things he saw in this market, he realized that location determines a trader's success in selling. Then, he negotiated with the mall to sell in front of the mall entrance. Finally, the roasted peanuts that he sells sell well. Tao had to leave college while he was taking his exams because he had to help his uncle pick up a stock of peanuts that were almost depleted. He plans to add branches and recruit several employees. Suddenly, Tao's girlfriend comes and advises him to focus on finishing college. However, he ignored her. The campus even called him because he was threatened with dropping out. As it turned out later, his mother informed him that she and his father would move to China because all their wealth had run out and their house might even be confiscated. Tao refuses to go with his parents to China. He chose to live in Thailand with his uncle. While dropping his parents off at the airport, he promised to pay off his parents' debts and bring them back to Thailand. Unfortunately, after his parents flew to China, he received news that the license to extend the lease for the place to sell peanuts at the mall was not extended. When he was out driving a car with his girlfriend, Tao saw her eating seaweed snacks. She likes seaweed snacks because it tastes good. After he learned that it was still rare for people to sell seaweed snacks like that, he immediately thought of his new business idea. Finally, he sold his peanut roaster to buy raw seaweed. Tao and his uncle started experimenting with cooking the seaweed he bought. However, it turned out that the seaweed they fried didn't taste good. He continued to fry the next seaweed until the seaweed stock ran out. In the end, he sold all his computers to buy new seaweed raw materials. Seeing this, his uncle advised him to follow his parents to China. This is because he could not bear to see him who always failed in doing his business. But Tao didn't want to give up and he wanted to keep trying. Hearing Tao's enthusiasm, his uncle promised to continue helping his business. One night, he found his uncle covered in blood and passed out due to slipping at home. He immediately took his uncle to the hospital. While waiting for his uncle, he felt sad because the only person who supported his business had actually suffered an accident. Because his uncle was being treated at the hospital, Tao tried to fry the seaweed alone at home. He returned to fry the seaweed from the remaining stock. He fried all the seaweed until the stock ran out, but it didn't taste good. Then, he saw the remaining bag of seaweed lying on the floor, but it had been dewy due to the remnants of the previous night's rain. Since there was no seaweed left, he finally fried his last seaweed stock. Tao was happy because his fried seaweed tasted good. From this experience, he discovered the secret to making the fried seaweed taste good, namely through the condensation technique. He started marketing his seaweed products. With his uncle who has recovered, he has started selling again and targets a profit of 1 million baht per year. He then thought he would pay off his parents' debts and bring them back to Thailand. However, he was shocked when he heard his parents' debt of 40 million baht. This means it will take him 40 years to pay off all his parents' debts. The next harsh reality was when the bank actually confiscated his house. He felt very sad. When he walked by and saw the plastic wrapping for 7-Eleven, he was interested to sell his seaweed products at the outlet. Then, he ventured to come to 7-Eleven's office to offer his products. While waiting, he saw a man presenting his product to the 7-Eleven manager. Then, he was inspired by practicing his presentation on the toilet. Unfortunately, when Tao met with the 7-Eleven manager to make a presentation, he was rejected because the product packaging was improper. He came home disappointed. One day, his girlfriend visited him, disappointed that Tao did not go to college anymore. She reminds him that by completing college he will be successful, but Tao convinces his girlfriend that success can come from anywhere as long as he is willing to put in the effort. Tao is very disappointed and angry when his girlfriend offers to pay for his college tuition. He then left her. The next day, Tao came to a product packaging printer. He asked for the packaging design and product name to be changed. However, the printing staff refused to change the product's name because according to him the seaweed product called Tao Kae Noi was good. After the new packaging model was finished, he returned to see the 7-Eleven manager the next day. Even though he had been waiting from morning to evening, the manager still didn't want to see him. Feeling unappreciated, he finally left. He left the sample product he brought and gave it to the security guard. So desperate, he called his mother and apologized because his promise to pay off their debts could not be fulfilled. He said he would follow them to China soon. Meanwhile, the sample product he left behind was actually tried by several employees at the 7-Eleven office and the manager. Tao was finally called to 7-Eleven's office. In a meeting with the manager and 7-Eleven staff, his products were accepted with several conditions. He must provide 70,000 packs of Tao Kae Noi products to 6,000 7-Eleven branches. In addition, the production site must comply with factory hygiene standards. Tao agreed to these conditions, although he was confused about fulfilling these conditions. The scene moves to the beginning of the film where Tao is meeting the bank manager to apply for a loan. Turns out, his goal was to borrow money from the bank to build a factory and recruit some employees. However, his loan application was rejected because he was still 19 years old. Desperate for not getting capital, he finally sold his car and set up a factory in his parents' former shop. One day as he was standing at the train station, he saw his girlfriend with another man. Instead of supporting him by being by his side, his girlfriend left him. After all, she was one of the people Tao would make happy if his business was successful. Tao finally managed to set up a factory and recruited several employees until the 7-Eleven came to inspect. However, the manager informed him that the factory was not worthy of 7-Eleven standards. 7-Eleven will consider and report the results of the inspection by fax. Finally, Tao managed to repair his factory to 7-Eleven standards, until one day, suddenly the fax machine at the factory rang. Unfortunately, the letter was not printed perfectly. Tao reads the message outside the room and reads a message written in capital letters approved. He was moved to tears over his achievements. Moreover, he has fulfilled the target of 70,000 packs of his products. He immediately hugged his uncle who had always been with him since he started his business. Tao called his mother. He told her that soon, he would bring them back to Thailand and pay off all their debts. 2 years later, Tao manages to pay off his parents' debts and bring them back to Thailand. Today, he has 2,500 employees and Tao Kae Noi products have spread to more than 6,000 7-Eleven branches. In addition, he also has a seaweed plantation in South Korea and his income until 2010 reached nearly $32 million at the age of 26 years. The film ends.